Hello everyone, my name is Devyani Moite and I am a student at the Hgpa classes at the CA intermediate level. Now you all must be wondering what is this video exactly about. So let me tell you, in this video I will like to share my experience of giving the CA foundation exam and a few strategies which helped me crack the examination. This video is basically going to be divided into two segments. In the first segment, I will be talking about your paper number 2, that is law. I will be sharing with you a few tips on how to present the paper, and also have dissected the law paper format for you. And in the second segment, I will be telling you a few strategies in order to cross the mark of 200 and clear the attempt. A few tips, a few strategies, or a few techniques which even if you implement now, at whatever stage of preparation you are, it may really give you that edge to crack the attempt. Guys, honestly, keeping in mind the time crunch you people have right now, your exams are just around the corner, there's not even 1 month left. So this is the time where your exam blues come in, and that is why I recorded this video, so that it really helps you to plan and give a momentum to your studies. Okay. To begin with, now let's continue with our first segment, in which I have got the law paper analysis for you. Now this, let me tell you, this is not my anticipation as to what the paper is going to be, but this is derived from my analysis of the past 7 years of the CA foundation papers. So I will first tell you how you're supposed to utilize this. Now basically what happens is, there are 5 acts that we have to study. In law, what the main issue is theory questions and the case study questions. So presenting your case study questions is a task. कि conclusion सबको पता होता है, but how to reach and how to write that conclusion becomes your task. For that, this is a bifurcation. ये पढ़ने से, ये एनालाइज करने से आपको एक अंदाजा आ जाएगा हर एक एक्ट का वो पेपर में वेटेज कितना है, आप उस एक्ट में थ्योरी का कितना वेटेज है, वो एक्ट में प्रैक्टिकल क्वेश्चन यानी केस स्टडी बेस्ड क्वेश्चन का कितना वेटेज है. यू विल गेट अ क्लियर कट आइडिया ऑफ दैट, एंड दिस हैज बीन, द institute has stuck to this format from the past 7 years. Yes, I know your LLP Act has got a lot of new amendments, something around 29 to 30 to be precise. But so the weightage of that act may increase, but there wouldn't be a drastic change in the entire structure. I will read out a few questions to you the way I have presented it, and I'll tell you how to utilize this in your scheduling. So your law paper basically subsumes of 6 questions. Now, in the first question, which is a compulsory question, the A part of the first question is of the Indian Contract Act. Now, the A part question is always a case study question, which comes for 4 marks. In the B question is about the Companies Act, which is again a case study question. The C question here from the Sales of Goods Act is a theory question for 4 marks. And this being a compulsory question, you should realize by far that there is no chance that you can skip any of these 3 acts. I mean, कोई भी act skip नहीं करना है, but particularly Indian Contract Act, Companies Act and Sales of Goods Act, they comprise of the compulsory question. Here, now in the question 2, there is a 7-mark theory question of the Indian Contract Act and a 5-mark theory question of the LLP Act. Now what you can gauge from this is, Indian Contract being a really vast and a wide act, it actually comprises of 25 to 28 marks from the entire 60 marks. So अगर आप वो एक act, if that act is pitch perfect, you can really score well. Now that you have a complete bifurcation of the way questions come, this can really enhance your prep. So what I want you to do is, आप एक list बना सकते हो. ये act मुझे बहुत अच्छे से आता है, this act is a little moderate, and then you start referring to this, कि इस जो act मुझे आता है उसका weightage कितना है, उसमें case studies का weightage कितना है, theory का weightage कितना है. So this may seem very generic right now, but when you actually sit, solve papers, and you know which is going to be the question in the exam, this happens to be very, very relaxing for you. Actually, this is something I can swear by, because this helped me score a 72 in the law paper. Yes. So now moving further, question number 3. Here Partnership Act question comes in. It's a theory question for 6 marks and again accompanied by the Indian Contract Act case study. Indian Contract Act it's always there in the first 3 questions. यही से आप लोग देख सकते हो कि it's the case studies have come for 10 marks, the theory question has come for 7 marks, so you can definitely gauge how important this act is. Another thing, in the 4th question, here comes the Sales of Goods Act. This is again a theory question which comes for 6 marks and a partnership question which is a case study question. Now here partnership का एक case study question आता है. तो till now the weightage of partnership has been 12 marks. One question which is theory and one question which is your practical question. That is your case study question. Coming down to question number 5. Again a question on Sales of Goods Act which is a case study question. So if you see, your Sales of Goods Act has been coming for 16 marks. 4 marks theory question in the first compulsory form. The next 4 marks, in question number 4 it has come for 6 marks and question 5 it has come for 6 marks again, which is a case study. The reason behind me repeating all these things is I really want you to refer to this when you're studying. Now हर बच्चे ने, every student has a different way to deal with law. अगर आपका एक एक्ट अच्छे से हुआ है तो आप उस हिसाब से उसको पढ़ो. आप देखो कि उसके केस स्टडी बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस कितने आते हैं. कोई एक्ट अगर वीक होगा तो यू चेक उसके केस स्टडी क्वेश्चंस कहाँ पे आते हैं और वो कौन से एक्ट के साथ आते हैं. सो यू नीड टू मैच दिस फॉर योरसेल्फ. This is going to be efficient only if you use it according to your preparation. Okay, now coming down to question number 6 actually. This question again has a theory question of Indian Contract Act for 5 marks, Partnership Act theory question for 4 marks and Companies Act case study based question for 3 marks. Now here I would like to tell you something. This is my personal opinion. What happens is the paper is already very lengthy. Law भी लिखना होता है, BCR भी लिखना होता है. So you should always follow the 2:1 ratio. That is 2 hours for your law and 1 hour for your BCR, which is sufficient. So now what happens is, if you think of attempting the 6th question, there are 3 questions here. So ultimately you take some time extra. So जो मैंने strategize किया था during my paper, I had decided कि I will not write the 6th question. Because कभी-कभी क्या होता है in the exam pressure or something, you tend to write a little slow or whatever and the time of writing gets extended. So when you can see जहाँ पे हर जगह दो questions है, you can actually attempt them and save on a lot of time. Again, this is very subjective to each one of us. I am just sharing what I did. That helped me complete my paper in the first place. And now, the most common problem or a little difficulty we all, at one time, we've all have faced is practical question, case study based questions को tackle कैसे करना है. It's not that you do not know the answers. The moment you read the question, when you can analyze the question, you know the answer in your own language. But the challenge is writing it down and putting it on the paper. Many students attempt such questions, write answers, but होता है कि marks नहीं मिलते. So the 2 main reasons behind, the examiner or anyone deducting your marks is the way you have written and the substance in your content. With that, I mean कि आप खुद के words में, many people say can we write in our own words? That's allowed, but that's only to a certain extent. At the end, this happens to be a law paper and a certain legal terms, legal phrases, they have to be used. They enhance your answers or ऐसे लगता है, there is a certain conviction in your answers when you use legal terms. So now what I have done is, I have taken 2 questions. Basically, law में 2 ही type के question आते हैं. One is theory based and one is your case study based questions. So I have taken 2 questions. One is a case study based question and one is a complete theory question. Now here, my motive of taking this question is not to explain the question, but to explain the presentation of how to start, what should be the mid and what should be the conclusion of your answer and the writing of it. So here, as you can see, this is my answer. Again, before beginning, analyzing the answer, I would request all of you to leave the margin. So जब भी आप exam में भी, whatever your answer sheet is, you should always leave the margin. That's for the examiner to mark or whatever. It makes the paper look more tidy and please leave a line after writing every point. It is extremely important. Now, just to give an idea of how to start the answer. So the moment you start the answer, the first point, the A point, should always be the provision. Even if it's a case study based question, you never jump onto the case. First, let the examiner know कि you know ये question कहाँ से आया है, ये provisions क्या है, book में, module में उसके बारे में क्या दिया है. You need to explain the concept first, then you need to write what's happened in the case, and then comes your conclusion. This is a 3-tier rule I have followed for all my answers, and they've worked wonders for me. So to begin, I always start my answers, writing according to the provisions of whatever act it is. Now, in this case, it's Indian Contract Act. So the first line should be this: according to the provisions of so and so act. You write your entire provision. Now, what happens is sometimes answer bada ho jata hai, or there are 2-3 points you need to cover. So make sure you know where to stop, and you start with the next point. So in this case, what's happening is, here you start writing the answer according to the provisions of the Indian Contract Act. A contract which contains anything that would indicate that it is the intention on the part of the parties that the contract must be performed by the promisor. Only the promisor will perform in the contract in such cases for the contract to be valid. So the meaning of this point is, or the crux in this point is, the intention which the parties have. If it's intended कि the promisor only him, उसी को perform करना है, तो सिर्फ वही perform करेगा. And taking this point further, you see I have underlined the important points, wherein such contracts usually involve personal skill, judgment, intelligence of the promisor, or are of personal confidence. So these few things, these determine your conclusion. ये सब पढ़ के आप conclusion पे पहुंचते हो. So these points, personal skills, judgment, all these things really need to be there in your answer so the examiner can know. Next. So the first 3 points, which is the A point, the B point, and the C point, are merely the provisions which I have stated in the module language. To score a great score, or to score over and above, your exemption, you need to adapt to the module language. There are many students who are not very comfortable with English, or जो module का language नहीं लिख सकते हैं, उनके लिए I just want to say that no problem if you cannot do that. Module में कुछ pointers है. So हर answer के लिए there are a few pointers which are written in bold in black. Even if you write them as it is and then you try and elaborate in your own words, that can also help you a lot. What happens is when you start writing the answer completely in your own words, it becomes a layman language, and the examiner somewhere is going to search for a few legal terms which actually makes the paper look like a law paper. So here, now when you have finished writing the provisions, come to the D point. Now that you have finished writing the provisions, you will first in short explain what has happened in the case. So उसके लिए भी एक line आप fixed रखना, there's no issue. In the instant case where Mr. C, who has entered into a contract with Mr. Rish to make self-portrait of Rish due to paralysis, will not be able to perform his promise. So now I have given a gist कि question में क्या है. You don't have to copy the entire question, but your starting line in the instant case, or you can also say according to the case mentioned above, or according to the question given. You can also write that, and then you continue writing the questions. जो भी 1-2 line आप लिख सकते हो about the question, and then you come to your conclusion. So in this case, Mr. Rish cannot ask Mr. K to complete the artistic work in lieu of his father, as it involves personal skill of Mr. C. So आपने पूरे provisions लिखे हैं, आपने बताया है केस में कि actually crux हुआ क्या है in those 3 lines, and now you directly write the conclusion. Also, I can also give you an alternative, which is you can also write when you're describing the case, or when you're writing the conclusion, you can always mention कि according to the provisions stated above, or according to the aforementioned provisions, and your conclusion follows. So in this case, if you are to put it in this case, you can always write After writing this, you can mention, according to the aforementioned provisions, Mr. Rish cannot ask Mr. K to complete the artistic work in lieu of his father, etc. So my aim is कि आप 3 process में जाओ. पहला होगा आप according to the provisions of this act, write the provision. Second step आपका है कि आप 2-3 लाइन में जो case law दिया है, जो case दिया है, just try to get the gist of it and quote the gist of it in 3 lines, and your conclusion should always begin with according to the aforementioned provisions of this act, and there follows your conclusion. So that is a way you write your answers. Now the content in your answers, see, there's no trick for that. You actually need to follow the module, but ठीक है, at this point if you feel that आप module language नहीं stick कर पा रहे हो, try to include maximum words which reflect in a legal way. So try to use a few words in your answer, and that shall suffice. Now coming down to the question 2. This is a complete theory question. Explain coercion and state its effects. Here, this question has only one step, and that is your provision. You guys have to mention your provision there. यहाँ पे कोई conclusion नहीं है, आप कुछ you are not deriving anything out of it. There's no analysis into it. There's just a one short straightforward question. What is coercion? And I don't think there's anything else you can write apart from what mentioned in the module. So I'll tell you, this has a particular way of writing, that is, mention the important words. Like in this, according to section 15, again mentioning, quoting the section is again going to enhance your answer. This will leave an impression on the examiner, although it is not compulsory. आपको लगता है कि you're not sure about the sections, please do not write the sections. Quote your sections only and only when you are very sure of them. Moving to question number 2, here I have highlighted or underlined, for that matter, a few important words. Now, according to section 15 of the Indian Contract Act, coercion is committing or threatening to commit any act forbidden by the Indian Penal Code. Indian Penal Code, committing, threatening, these 3 words happen to be the substance of the answers. So बाकी के words थोड़ा change हो जाए, ठीक है, चलता है, but ये जो 3 words है, ये 3 words, they have to be there in your answer. They need to form a part of your answer. Moving to the B point is, it is immaterial whether the Indian Penal Code is or is not in force where coercion has been carried out. Again, this again makes a statement. So यहाँ पे immaterial word is important, you underline it. My basic intention of telling you this is adapt to the module language to a great extent. आपको एक point के बाद अगर नहीं हो रहा है तो आप खुद के words में लिखो, but do not make it a complete layman's language. And for that, you need to constantly write answers, practice answers, and refer to the institutes, books and modules कि आपको help मिले. The quality of your answers really matters. आप कितना बड़ा answer लिखते हो, that does not matter. Now, so the crux of me telling you about law was just that you need a lot of writing practice, your time management during your papers, and please do underline the important words. These small things actually make a very big difference to the examiner. So अगर आपका presentation अच्छा है, आपने answers अच्छे से लिखे हैं, तो आपको marks मिलेंगे. And law paper is something, it's a theory paper, so the best thing to do is to attempt maximum marks. And you need to strategize कि आप time कैसे manage करोगे, which questions you will be attempting first. Your reading time again happens to be a very crucial time. You need to decide which questions you will be attempting first. So yes, all these few things you need to keep in mind, and I'm sure you will be able to crack the paper. Now, a few last minute tips. Before starting this, I think I really need to be honest here and say that you have a time crunch now. You have less than a month, your exams are just around the corner, and there will be many students there who who will say कि हमारा syllabus cover नहीं हुआ है पूरा, हमने सिर्फ 60-70% पढ़ा है, 100% हुआ नहीं है coverage. It is okay. This 1 month, it's a make or a break month. बहुत बार ऐसे होता है, people who consistently studied, वो last 1 month में उनका momentum पढ़ाई का change हो जाता है. I don't know, we tend to kind of get diverted, or we don't study in the correct manner. That again costs us an attempt. These things really matter. So I want to tell you one fact maybe कि at this point of time, जो stage पे आप हो, जितने दिन बाकी है, considering that, you need to stop counting the number of hours you sit to study. अगर आपका syllabus काफी कम cover हुआ है, 60% पढ़ाई हुआ है, stop counting the number of hours you're studying. You need to work very, very hard, and what's more important is to work smart. आप किस तरीके से पढ़ते हो makes a big change. I can say that that's a game changer, and it was for me. So now the first thing is coverage of variety of questions. Now what happens here in variety of questions is, what I mean by that is कि जो बच्चों का पढ़ाई नहीं भी हुआ है ज़्यादा, या फिर जिनका हुआ है, a great advantage for them, but when you cover a variety of questions, exam में जब आप बैठते हो ना, तो you lose that surprise element. You have already seen the variety of questions in the paper. आपने पहले ये questions आप solve कर चुके हो. Now this results into a lot of confidence. Solving a variety of questions, now you do not have the time to start from scratch and refer your module from scratch and finish the syllabus and everything. Abhi, there's no time for that. So now if you really want to crack your paper, your aim should be covering a huge variety of questions in accounts, in your law, be it your math, economics. Specifically for accounts, if I'm to speak, it's a practical paper, और यहाँ पे आपको steps के लिए marking होता है. For example, अगर आपको पूरा question नहीं आता है, but the fact that you have attempted a variety, you have attempted most of it, आप step marking से भी आप clear कर सकते हो. So you need to attempt something. There's no point in attempting 50 marks paper, 60 marks paper. You need to attempt 100 marks, और उसमें अगर आपके आंसर्स गलत भी हो तो स्टेप मार्किंग से आपको मार्क्स मिलते हैं, एंड दैट विल हैपन ओनली व्हेन यू हैव कवर्ड अ वैरायटी ऑफ क्वेश्चंस. नाउ by saying variety of questions, I basically emphasize on your MTPs, RTPs and previous year question papers. For example, if you have only studied the questions given in your module, and if you go for your examination, the examination paper is going to be shocking for you because it does not cover the entire variety. आप जब MTP के क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करते हो ना, सारे क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करते हो, MTP, RTP, previous year papers, you have an entire idea. There's a spectrum कि इतने ऐसे टाइप के क्वेश्चंस आ सकते हैं, एंड बेस्ड ऑन दैट यू कैन एक्चुअली टैकल देम. नाउ स्ट्रैटेजाइज सब्जेक्ट्स. So during my time, I'll tell you, I faced a lot of difficulty with maths. So your aim is not individual subjects. Your aim is to cross that target of 200 with at least 40 in each subject. So for example, what I did, I'll tell you, is मेरे लिए maths was difficult. So I knew कि अगर मुझे maths में सिर्फ 40 भी आते हैं, I need the other 3 subjects to pull off my aggregate. So my helping hand was law, accounts and economics. So you need to find those 2 subjects which are going to help you to pull off your aggregate. और जो difficult subjects है फिलहाल, if you feel कि अभी आपको बहुत time नहीं है उनको 100% cover करने का, even if you manage to just pass around, आपको जो बाकी के 2 strong subjects है जो आपको बनाने ही पड़ेंगे, they will help you to push your aggregate. So you shouldn't fail कि आपका aggregate कम आया है. Individual papers, अगर आपको marks कम आ रहे हैं and all of that, that's a different question. But I feel कि अगर आप aggregate में कम, aggregate is short, then that's a planning and a strategizing issue. So that should never happen. You hold your 2 subjects जो आपको 200 cross कराएंगे. The third thing, importance of mock test. This is, I think, the most important thing to do is giving your mock test. So at Hgpa classes, when I was giving my attempt, our faculties compelled us to give at least 4 papers of all the subjects. Initially, at this stage मुझे भी लग रहा था कि मेरा पूरा पढ़ाई हुआ नहीं है, क्या ही फायदा होगा सब, to give the papers and all of that. But Kapil sir, Harshvardhan sir, our faculties, they compelled us to sit and give the papers. And from that, let me tell you, the agenda is, always, okay, you're testing yourself जब आप papers देते हो, you test yourself, you know where you stand actually. That's very important. But another thing which is very unnoticed maybe, but subconsciously it helps you, is you are used to that exam pressure. It's human psychology. See, when you sit for your ICI exam, जब आपका main exam होता है, your first paper happens to be very stressful because your brain and your body is not used to that environment. The moment you give your mocks here, you give your tests up, in that stipulated time, in those 3 hours, you sit and you attempt, the pressure. You know the time limit. So your mind is not new to that circumstances, and it really helps you in the paper. I again like to say, these things might feel very generic at this point of time because you're in your comfort zone, you're just listening to this. But if you follow this, it makes a drastic change in your examinations. And you'll realize this the moment you sit for your first paper. Again, the next thing is your 1.5 day strategy. So this is actually really important कि जैसे ही आपका एग्जाम शुरू होता है, when you finish your paper and you come back home, you shouldn't have the question कि अब मैं कहाँ से शुरू करूँ. Before your exams, you need to have it written on a piece of paper कि accounts के लिए मैं इतने दिन हैं. Accounts is of course your first paper, so you have more than 2-3 days for accounts. You can take your time. But the moment you come from accounts, you should have a paper ready for law. कि at this point मुझे ये करना है. After coming from the exams, I'll be covering this. The next day I'll be doing this, and the morning of the exams I'll be covering these things. So a strategy here which actually helped me is I realized कि suppose आप accounts के paper के बाद आते हो घर पे, you're tired and all of that. We tend to skip that day. We sometimes we don't study that much, but actually you need to cover a lot of syllabus on that day because next day evening तक pressure build up होना शुरू होता है paper का. So at that point, you need to keep topics which are comparatively easy or which you are comfortable with. So the day you finish your accounts paper, you take a break, relax. उसके बाद, you can push it off till late night. You can cover a few topics and get up early morning, and that's the time where you cover the most difficult topics which you find challenging. And then as the day goes on, you need to come down to easy topics so that वो pressure और anxiety ज़्यादा build up ना हो. So please have this strategy, have this thing written down in a book where you can actually just open the book and you have the timetable कि आपको पता है मुझे घर जाके करना क्या है. Do not waste your time thinking कि मैं कहाँ से शुरू करूँ because the syllabus is very vast and the time is limited. And for law you have to cover everything. ठीक है? Now number of hours to study. This is a very subjective question. I'll just like to say कि मेरा जब एक महीना जब बाकी था तो my preparation level was 60% to 70%. So for me there was no option कि आप गिनो कि कितने घंटे मैंने पढ़ाई किया है. You need to stop counting the number of hours. This is the only 1 month you have. So you need to slog. You need to work very hard. But as I mentioned before also, you need to work smart. आपका पढ़ाई करने का तरीका बहुत important है. If that is wrong, then a lot of things can go wrong. So just correct the way you are studying. You need to gauge what works for you. This is a generic set of techniques I have given you. You need to personalize them and apply to your schedule to get the most benefit out of it. So this is what has worked for me. आपके लिए जो अलग अलग चीजें होंगी they may work, but these are a few standard things. आप इसको अपने हिसाब से सेट करो, think over it. Don't count your hours कि मैंने इतना पढ़ाई किया. Measure it on the content, set your targets, and you will be good to go. One more thing which I can tell you which helped me was the marathon lectures that I attended at my classes. So what happens is before the exam, there's a lot of pressure. You need to cover all topics, all chapters. So there came in the Hgpa marathon, and I'll tell you how they helped me. Kapil sir, Harshvardhan sir, all these people gave us marathon notes, and when they took the marathon sessions, they revised all the concepts in one day. So the concepts are freshly brewed in your mind. Let me tell you that. Because each and every topic, be it maths, be it accounts, be it law, हर एक टॉपिक वो दोबारा रिपीट करते हैं. दे टेल यू द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स इन इट, आपको कैसे पढ़ना है. दे गिव यू द मैराथन नोट्स. सो एग्जाम के पहले ना दैट्स वेरी मच नीडेड फॉर अस. दैट अगेन इज गोइंग टू बी वेरी हेल्पफुल. सो योर this is the CA Foundation Marathon series launched by the Hgpa classes, and they will be starting from the 18th of November. I urge you all to please come and attend the series. This is going to be of great help. And after the series, if you want to challenge yourself for your foundation exams, please do also come for the CA test series arranged by the Hgpa classes from the 24th. The link and the details about this is there in the description box, but again I would just like to tell you and conclude this video by saying that it's all worth it in the end. You know, when you see your results, when you see the pass over there, ये सब जो आप अभी मेहनत कर रहे हो, your late nights, early mornings, your marathons, your tests, whatever you give, this seems worth it. That moment, that result moment, trust me guys, I have been there, and you can still crack it, you can still do it. 1 month to go, a lot of time, I can say. I have been there, I know the syllabus, you guys can still do it, and I wish you all the very, very best.